This temporary bee setup has been an eyesore in the village center for a long time. Honey is such an important resource to get and I wanted it early, but it feels so good to finally be able to tear this thing down and open up this spot in the village for another building. Maybe a store that sells free range honey or something. The replacement building is located just outside the village and it's a build I am really proud of. I really feel like I channeled my inner B00 for this build. I upped my game in the use of color, shape and detail. Through the magic of editing you'll see a sneak preview of it when I snap my fingers. But I won't spoil everything just yet. Hi, I'm Jeff, bringing you some more low octane survival Minecraft, so kick back, relax and enjoy. Now, instead of doing the usual chill music and time-lapse of the build, I thought I'd go through the design and build process in a bit more detail to talk about why I made certain decisions in the design. But before we get into the building, let's talk about redstone. No, wait! Don't leave! I won't go into all the details, I promise. I'll save that for a tutorial. Today we'll just talk about the why of the redstone. Now, bee farm designs are pretty much always based on a comparator that detects when the hive is full and a dispenser with tools to harvest the honey. Traditional designs have two properties that I particularly dislike. First of all, if for whatever reason something goes wrong with the harvesting, the farm gets stuck until you manually intervene. And due to how dispensers work with honey bottles, they basically always need to be completely full with glass bottles, otherwise they get stuck. Now I think that wasting glass bottles goes against the free range spirit of this farm, and I want a farm that doesn't need much maintenance. So I set out to create a variation on the classical bee farm design that addresses my concerns. It features comparators that measure both the level of the hive and the level of the harvesting dispenser, as well as a clock that runs and tries to harvest the honey as long as both the hive and the dispenser contain something. And all this packaged in modules that are only 2 blocks wide, even with some shared redstone, so pretty tileable. As mentioned, I won't discuss the workings block by block. Be on the lookout for a tutorial on my channel if you're interested in that. And on that topic, subscribe, hit that notification bell to be notified when new videos are released. While you're at it, why not leave that video a like? And oh yeah, you can also ask all your questions in the comments below. Anyway, with all that social media stuff out of the way, a slight downside of this farm design is that honey bottles can get stuck in the system for some time, but ultimately everything will make its way to the final storage chests, and if I ever change my mind and really dislike that, I can always make sure it is completely filled up with glass bottles after all. But enough geeking around with redstone, let's talk about the building itself, shown here in its full glory. The building ultimately serves 3 purposes. First of all, to house the redstone, obviously. You saw it was behind the hive, so to speak. Some of it could be hidden underground, but some of it can't, and I want to protect it from the elements. Second of all, I want to make sure that the bees stay safe and close to their hives. Yeah, I know I said free range, but you know, not that free. The last purpose is to provide storage space for all things honey related in my base, by the way. So these purposes drive the design of the building. I wanted to have some sort of central courtyard for the bees with these beehive modules surrounding it, some sort of corner so it's not just a rectangular block, as well as some easily accessible storage that actually looks like it's part of the honey operation and not just hidden underground. All that leads to a ground floor design that looks something like this, a pretty basic L shape with some extra corners here and there and a patio on one end. The weird thing about this floor plan is that there's not really any rooms in the building, and that is because it didn't fit well with the redstone. It doesn't matter though, you don't notice this from the outside. Material wise, I wanted the ground floor to be some sort of stone because this part of the building will be carrying the most load, I think. I went for a mix of granite, bricks and regular terracotta, and it looks pretty good. And that's basically enough for as far as the farm is concerned, but it's still looking a bit bland, so let's add something on top. The first floor? Is that what it's called in English, the first floor? Anyway, the thing above the ground floor is mainly decorative. I wanted to add some variation in color and depth to the build to make it look less bland. Shape-wise, it follows the ground floor mostly, but it runs over the storage patio on one side and leaves a small elevated platform on the other side, just so there's some shape variation between the floors. I like the contrast with the ground floor that the stripped birch logs bring. I used them for the structural portion of this floor and used sandstone to fill in much of the walls and brought back some of the reddish brown tints of the ground floor through the use of jungle planks. It's also a bit wider than the ground floor in many places, which together with the walls around the windows creates some extra depth to the faces of the build. It makes it a bit more interesting to look at. Also, the nether brick fences bring darker colors while still keeping with the reddish theme so far. You can already see the general shape of the roof appear here. There's a straight pointy roof section on one end. It's slightly curved, kind of like a fantasy forest building of sorts. It sticks out further than the birch beams it rests on in many places, creating even more depth in the build. The rest of the roof is a dome shape and it's sort of a hip roof, I believe, following the shape of the first floor and eventually joining up with the pointy roof. Now, color-wise, I knew I wanted this to pop, so I went with the teal warped planks, complementary to the red of the ground floor. It's not yet visible here, but I think texture-wise the roof is pretty flat, so I ended up replacing some sections of the roof with patches of prismarine later, just to break up the warped planks texture a bit. Anyway, to finish the last structural part of the building, I added the courtyard for the bees, or actually it's more of a greenhouse really with all the glass because I'm pretty sure bees and flowers need sunlight. I went with some brown tones here because of the bee nests and because I wanted some opaque trapdoors to hide the redstone. In keeping with this brown color scheme, there's some spruce framing around the glass to finish the bee house. And yeah, pretty good so far, I think, but it's still looking a bit static and it won't stop doing that until we add details. I wanted this building to look like something is happening. So first I added this platform fully loaded with honey-based materials that is mid-hoist up or down. Of course with some warning lights and barriers around it, we don't want any accidents on this bee farm operation. The blue of the roof makes an appearance around windows and doors in the rest of the building for an extra splash of color. And of course the bee house itself is full with color through the use of flowers and full with motion through the bees themselves. To give people proper access to the first floor, there's also a staircase added making use of acacia trapdoors as a railing, which I think always looks amazing in a more industrial setting. All entrances are connected with a path and everything connects to the rest of the village through a lovely purple bridge. This brings together the purple of the farmhouse that is across the bridge from the bee farm, and the dark reds of the nether brick are used as detailing in both buildings and they make an appearance in this bridge as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of work that went into this so far, and I'm at a point where I will want to let this build rest for a bit. But there's a few things still on my mind that I didn't have time for before this video went out. I want to add some sort of cart around the building just to tell the story of how the honey is transported away from this building and into the village. I also think that in places the building still stands on top of the terrain rather than is actually built into it. So particularly around these straight stone sections, I'm looking for ways to make it look like the building is more embedded in the terrain. If you have any tips here, they are certainly welcome. And of course, we end the most satisfying steps of any project, for as far as I'm concerned anyway, updating the project board and updating the map. Or in this case, I see this project was never on the board, typical Jeff, so just the map updating it is. And I think the building looks really, really good on the map. The extra detail around the place really comes through, and it's clear to me that this is the most refined build of the village, so far at least. So yeah, you're hearing a Jeff here that is really, really proud of himself. Pats on the back for me. I also found this bee banner design on a YouTube channel called Chado Moon. I hope I'm saying that right and not using some kind of swear word in a language that I'm not aware of. Anyway, I made some and I added them to the tourist information building. They now offer tours to the bee farm as well as to the volcano. I'll leave a link to the banner video in the description below. I don't know if these banners are their own creation, but the video is a good and clear tutorial nonetheless. Well, I feel I've been yapping on for quite enough now, and if you're still here, you're a superstar. It is much appreciated. I will end the video here, but not before saying thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I hope to see you next time.